it minimizes a lot of the misunderstandings, right? Only where necessary. Again, don't overwhelm.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Data Talk with Doers, the podcast that take you on a journey throughout the fantastic world of data science and analytics. I'm your host, Neema, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us. Please give a warm welcome to Salma Sultana, the founder of Hummingbirds, a company specialization in data storytelling and corporate communication skills. With over 15 years of corporate experience, Salma has embarked on an incredible solopreneur journey, sharing her expertise and knowledge in various exercises. Salma's passion lies in helping and mentoring individuals and corporations in multiple key areas. She guides them in mastering effective data visualization and data storytelling techniques, developing essential business communication skills to build credible among users, management, and executives, refining presentation skills and optimizing LinkedIn profile branding to leave a lasting impressions. Salma's commitment and dedication to sharing an immense amount of knowledge with others truly set her apart in the field, and her grit and passion shine through as she empowers individuals and organizations. So we are delighted to have you, Salma. I hope it's a good morning today.
Yes, it's a wonderful morning from you coming from Canada. So, yeah.
So we are
So,
so happy to have you in this episode.
oh, likewise, I'm really honored to be a part of your, podcast and episode. Yeah, I really look forward to, having a wonderful conversation.
Great, great. So let me get started. We wanted to know, like in today's data-driven world, the ability to effectively communicate data is very crucial. So, could you share some insights and tips on how individuals can enhance their data visualization and storytelling technique to create more engaging and persuasive presentation?
Sure, that's a wonderful question. First things first, whether you are doing any kind of data visualization or any kind of a presentation, at the heart of any of these tasks, you should keep your it should be the audience first. So keep your audience central to whatever work you're doing, right? Before you start your dashboards or visualizations, I always recommend and tell everyone, understand your audience first. Understand what they care about, what are their interests, and what are their priorities, and what are their existing skills. So in terms of understanding proficiencies, and tailor your visualizations and the whole storytelling around. In saying that, when I'm tailoring, so based on how they understand and based on their priorities, make sure you're using appropriate charts, your appropriate graphs, appropriate visuals. It doesn't always have to be graphs. It could be tables or even infographics. Anything that you can present visually and make it easier for them to understand, right? It could be using the right kind of even specific messages sometimes work better for certain understand the hierarchy. So depending on what level of hierarchy you're presenting to, you have to basically curate your messages to that specific audience, right? So it's not only about visualization, it's about how you use your communication in terms of writing as well, and how you strategically develop the flow of your work. It all depends on the audience, so when you're working on your presentations or visualizations, don't just focus solely on just the visual communication aspect of it in terms of diagrams and aesthetics. You have to be sensitive towards what is it that you're fulfilling for the audience. So each diagram, for example, they have their own strengths, so use the right type of diagram. It's not about making your diagrams look good, but use the right type of diagram. Make sure you're not kind of leading them to misinterpret anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And focus on storytelling also, I'd say. Build some kind of logical flow to it. Start with it depends on who you are trying to show a message. Start with the takeaway, or sometimes you can just start with what your requirements are. It depends on who you're presenting to, right? You have to be able to add so much of context to the information that you're showing. use use storytelling to kind of, I would say, evoke kind of some emotions, right? Through this, the way you're presenting, right? And these emotions usually come in the way you're, either you can add context to it to kind of, make your audience go, oh, okay, so this is where it came from, so that kind of an emotion, or any kind of an emotion, like, oh, okay, this is what is really the problem, or you make them feel, so how you present your information in terms of how you're putting context to it can influence the way you're making the audience feel as well. So yeah, use some kind of storytelling techniques along the way, to add value to the presentation or the visualization, that you're showing. I would also definitely go to add, when I say don't go by aesthetics, I specifically, I think I like to make this clear to so many, is they kind of misunderstand what do I mean by, or anyone, when we say don't focus on so much on the aesthetics. So don't focus so much on the, making your charts look pretty, if you're not really conveying any message in it at all. Sometimes I know a simple bar chart can do so much information, give away so much information than otherwise if you just made a fancy chart. So don't focus so much on aesthetics. But having said that, don't completely leave it, bare as well. There is something called visual engagement, and this is something I particularly have to stress, that when you are presenting, or, and not like live presenting, when you're actually letting your audience view any of your work, make it worthy of viewing visually. You have to feel visually engaged. So by that I mean use specific colors where necessary. Use special type of only where necessary. Again, don't overwhelm. Use a little bit different font where necessary. Use your layouts. You can play with the layouts of the way you're presenting. So play with that. Use certain color scheme that your audience can resonate with, like a brand color, or or just in general a color that that will go away well with the information that you're showing. Like if you're talking about the greenhouse gases, or you're talking of or if you're talking of, let's say, plantations or anything as such, a green theme is good. If you're talking of the oceans and the sea levels in your visualization, a blue theme is good. So kind of try to make it visually engaging in terms of visually relatable, and as well, use visuals to highlight important information as well. Don't forget to highlight what is important in that, because most of the visuals will have some kind of a takeaway. So don't forget to use specific elements, boxes, or underlines, or bold typefaces, or anything, to highlight important information. Use fonts that are easy to read, and pay attention to as well. So by visuals, don't make it overly artistic, but also make it enough. So you have to strike that balance, and make it engaging enough as well, while at the same time making sure your visualizations and the story that you're telling stays intact and is made for the audience that you're presenting it to. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot to take in, but those are some of the tips I would give to anyone who wants to enhance their visualization or their storytelling skills.
That was actually a great information, Salma, that you shared, because all of it is really very important. And we started with audience, right? If the audience doesn't understand the whole the story or whatever you're presenting, then I feel as a developer or a analyst, it's a failure from their end. Yeah. So having these tips are really helpful. So the next is I would like to know another area of expertise you bring is business communication skills. So why are these skills vital for professionals, and what key areas do you focus on when helping individuals build credibility in their corporate environment?
So building credibility, there are a lot of things you need to focus on actually when, especially in a corporate space. One is build your collaboration skills, so you need, so when you want to build your credibility, you have to be, a, you have to appear very collaborative as well. You have to be very approachable, right? And so start. So it's not only strong communication, and I'll come to that. What I mean by strong communication here, but you have to be able to show that you can collaborate well with your managers, your team members, your stakeholders. You know, show that you are able to get along with what their ideas are, and sort of and brainstorm with them and give your ideas as well, right? So this kind of back and forth communication, it allows for developing a better understanding. It minimizes a lot of the misunderstandings, right? When you're able to kind of show this collaborative relationship, or kind of establish this relationship, you also promote some kind of I would say productive work relationship, right? So one of the keys to start credibility is you being, for everyone to be able to mutually respectable. So this is the base of it, right? Respect your the opinions, or and the differences as well, and the arguments. Be collaborative, be work along with them. This is one of the first keys to start building your credibility, right? And as you're actually building that, because you need to have a good word of mouth as well. When you're collaborative, you build a good word of mouth as well, that hey, Salma is a good person to work with, get along with that person, maybe he can help you along on the project. You start building your name based on that, right? Because you are more approachable and you're helpful, right? And you're building trust among the people this way. So this is you as a coworker, I would say. Build trust. But what if you're a leader? How do you build your credibility as a leader? You as a leader also, you need to be very open equally to your subordinates as well. Don't micromanage them. Be able to influence what you as a leader are. Let them make their decisions, but guide them along the way, right? So help them effectively handle conflicts. So these are ways, even as a leader, you can build credibility, right? And so these are more from relationship point of view, right? How you build relationships and trust, right? Apart from that, if you really want to have improve your so these are some of the problems. If you really want to improve otherwise, start improving your verbal communication, right? And by that is try to focus on when you're speaking, improve your clarity, right? Try to be very clear in what you're saying. Be very coherent in what you're saying, as in if you're trying to make a point, stick to the point and don't, talk about 3-4 topics all at the same time. So be very coherent at what you're saying, because remember, your listener can also, will kind of be lost when you're talking too many things at once, right? So talk about one specific topic and be very confident when you're speaking, right? If you are showing that you know what you're speaking and you're confident, that is it in itself is also building a credibility, right? And don't be scared. If you're not sure of what you're going to say, don't be scared to say I'm not sure, or I could be wrong. And I actually prefer to do this a lot. When I make a point, and if I'm not sure what I'm going to say, I could be wrong, but I'll start like this. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is what the point is, or or in my opinion, this is what I feel, but you're open to disagree, right? So you have to kind of let them know indirectly that what you're saying may or may not be correct, instead of pretending that you're really confident and giving off wrong information. That kills the credibility. You might appear confident, you might be really good at the way you're speaking, but if you're speaking all wrong, you're actually killing the credibility instead of building one, right? So be open to saying I don't know, or I'm not sure, or it's just my opinion, right? So kind of keep that open and so, yeah, to kind of build that open trust that, okay, this person is being honest about, what they're saying. Maybe he doesn't know, or maybe he needs more time to, figure out what they're talking about. So get your verbal communication, in place, by
Mhm.
improving clarity and coherence. And this goes as well for writing as well. Um, you need to be able to write clearly. You need to be able to write very concisely, because it's a corporate environment. We're not here to read stories and novels. We are usually having a lot of things in our mind, right? We have a lot of work on our mind, and we want to be very, very clear. So again, keep it to the point. Try to avoid jargons, and keep it very, very, don't write huge paragraphs. Try to keep it to the bullet points. If you need a certain a list of things to be accomplished, or a list of goals to be accomplished, and you want to give it to someone in an email, put it in bullet points. You will tend to miss out in a paragraph, maybe 8 or 7, 7 or 8 tasks that you would have given, but it's better off in a bullet point, right? And this goes for whether you're giving it an email or a memo or in any other written document, right? Try to keep it as error free as much as possible. So and these are going and in documents. So yeah, definitely always double check the work that you're doing. Another very important thing I would say is, if you want to improve your credibility, is you have to be a bit aware of nonverbal cues, such as your body language or your facial expressions, or gestures. They significantly impact the communication. you know
Mhm.
I could be saying something, but I could be nodding, no. It kind of impacts, are you trying, like, it shows that you're very unsure, right? Or so your body language itself, you have to project confidence as well. You have to build, you have to kind of um, establish eye contact, and make the other person feel trusted. you know
Mhm.
uh, you have to show that you are open to um, kind of accepting others' feedback as well. Accept criticism rather. I have, and I can tell you this, and this is very normal. Sometimes people don't take criticism that well, but if you're establishing your credibility, learn to accept that you're not going to be the best all the time. Everyone will have some or the other kind of feedback for you at some point. Take it in your stride, take it as a constructive criticism, and say thank you for your feedback. I'll see what I can do to improve it.
Mhm.
So yeah, so these establish your credibility as well. It's not about always the knowledge. You might have a lot of knowledge about your you know the domain you are in, but if you're not able to kind of build trust, if you're not able to get your point across, if you're not able to feel that you're approachable and you're not confident, then that knowledge is not going to help you. Because no one will come to you for help, or no one is going to want to collaborate with you, right? And yeah, equally, and um, empathize as well.
Mhm.
So again, this is very important. Empathize with other people as well. It's not only about your credibility. It's not always about you, the one who is speaking, or you, the one who is talking. It is equally about others as well. Be empathetic to what others are saying, or what other people's problems are, or and adopt and adapt their communication style as well sometimes. So you have to be kind of sensitive to how some people communicate, and adapt to their styles, to kind of make them feel at ease. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, um, and I think the most important of all, be an active listener. You know,
Okay.
when you are in a conversational setting, whether it's in a meeting or a one-on-one, or whatever kind of a setting it is, be an active listener. Fully focus and understand on what the listener is telling you, right? Um, if needed, if you really want to be clear, and you want to show that you understood, or or for yourself, you want to really feel that you know um, you need to be clear in what you understood, then paraphrase it.
Mhm.
Ask clarifying questions, and even provide feedback. So let me just paraphrase this. Is this what you mean? Or are you trying to say that this is XYZ has happened, if I'm not wrong? or let me clear this if this is what I understood, and then go ahead. So clarify it, ask questions, right? This kind of makes the listener, the speaker feel heard as well. And that indirectly is actually building a relationship and trust as well, because you are showing that, yes, I'm listening to you. And the speaker is also feeling heard. So that itself is kind of establishing some kind of a trust over there, right? The word is, it kind of shows you're demonstrating respect for the other person as well, that, hey, I'm hearing you. I'm trying to take down the points, and I'm trying to see the best way I can to understand what you're saying, and it kind of improves your understanding as well. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to improve credibility. It's not only about your knowledge, and it's not about trying to get a space on the big table and talk with the executives. No, it's a lot to do with your nonverbal cues, the way you speak and the way you write, being clarity, asking the right questions, being humble, be accepting of any kind of a feedback, whether, it could be some form of criticism. Take it, no problem, accept it, and, tell them thank you for it. In fact, if not every person will give you a feedback, if somebody's taking the time to give you a feedback for you to improve yourself, say a thank you for that, and then be culturally sensitive, right? We are in a cross-cultural world right now, so be culturally sensitive, and be sensitive to how other people communicate, and and kind of adapt to it, instead of showing that you're impatient, right? So yeah, those are some of the ways I feel you can enhance your credibility along the way.
That was actually a very great answer. When you were telling all the answers, right? Currently, I am a Toastmaster, so I've been like checking all the points that I'm learning in terms of verbal communication, how you have to present yourself and build the credibility. And it's coming from you, I feel these points are very valid, Salma. So thank you so much for sharing. So for the next question, as a solo entrepreneur and mentor, you have helped numerous individuals in their journey. So what drives your passion for sharing this knowledge and empowering the others to like excel in their communication and personal branding?
That's a good question. A very good question. What motivates me um, is, so first of all, helping others in their professional journey it's incredibly rewarding. To be able to help understand, help people kind of expand their knowledge and share knowledge with them, and help them build their own personal brand. In terms, and by personal brand, I mean kind of be able give them the voice to make people speak what they want to speak. Yeah, it's really rewarding, to be able to do that. I really feel, and I think this is normal for most of the professionals, and I'm sure you would agree, is, strong and effective communication is really important. It's the key to success across both your your personal life, and your professional equally as well. So I feel like you need to be able to, and like I mentioned in my previous, answer about the credibility, I want people to be able to build that, credibility in a professional setting, right? Because you have to inspire individuals to, express themselves confidently, and, and connect with other people, right? When you can do that, you eventually open up a lot of opportunities for growth and advancement in career as well. When you're able to effectively communicate, and you kind of open up a lot of roads for growth, right? And I've seen firsthand myself, how being able to communicate can transform career growth, or even boost your own self-confidence, and even it kind of impacts personal relationships as well in a positive way, right? So these are things that I want to be able to empower in people, right? And I love helping people out in kind of finding their own voice to to understand what is the best way they feel confident in communicating, right? And kind of let them, so you can't push people, I can't, like, if I'm a natural introvert, I can't, or if someone else is a natural introvert, I can't push them and say, hey, you have to speak, you have to speak, you have to speak, you gotta be, no, you have to kind of understand what is their mindset and kind of help them in their introvert, space itself, help them communicate better. And that's something I really like to do is, you know, within your comfort area itself, I want to help you to become better at, your work and become more credible. I'll let you be the way you are, but I also try to help you out and make, get your voice out, because, introverts, they're often very closed off. They wouldn't want to express that much. And I worked with my own coworker who was, my main team member with me. He himself was an introvert, and I had a lot of trouble in the beginning, you know, trying to get him to make his point, because often we would go to a meeting, and we were the two key senior, members in our analytics team. And so most of the time, if there was like a really important meeting, both of us used to like be there in that meeting, except the problem is he would never ever ever speak, and I would be often coming out frustrated from the meeting after an hour, because I feel like when you're the only person who's speaking in a meeting, there are two things that people feel. Either I'm not letting the other guy speak, because I'm taking over, it appears like that, or the other guy is not prepared at all, and I'm covering for him. So, there are a lot of things that go on in, the managers and the management and whoever you're with, in their mind, that why is he not speaking? This is at the beginning days, in the early days, and it's eventually I started to realize, well, this is how he is. He doesn't speak that much, but then I started understanding his trends, kind of helped him also, and within the workspace itself, I kind of, because I knew, as in, because I'm working with him as one-on-one, I knew how good he was in the work he was doing, except he wasn't very expressive. So I kind of took care of, I told him to, use his strength in a different way. Doesn't have to be speaking, but do it in the way you are writing, rather, or do it in the way you're trying to make your point one-on-one. Introverts thrive on one-on-one, so, do that, build your one-on-one relationship. So yes, things like those. So those are things I like to kind of help in people, build their, communication skills, in the right ways, within their own space, you know, and yeah, so that is something I've been really enjoying to help. In terms of personal branding, I love people to be able to, and this is something actually I don't really talk about a lot, within my content as well, but I do help people behind the scenes kind of build personal branding as well, and I've spoken to so many, kind of tell them, and I'm not that personal branding who's going to probably, I don't talk about, like influencers do, how do you build a personal brand to monetize and everything. No, that's not the, so that's one way of helping people, how to build a personal brand. The personal brand that I help people in is, how do you position yourself on, particularly in the LinkedIn platform, in a way, these are mostly for job seekers that I do, as how do you build your own brand in a way that you become attractive to a recruiter, So by this, I mean, sometimes, because one of the things job seekers will come is, I have, I have so many projects, and I have so many, portfolios, or projects uploaded on GitHub, and I have so and so certifications, and I have so many degrees, and I'm not getting a job, and and the point is, if in this day and age, your recruitment is one of the very important things your recruiters will do is they will check your social media presence, and by that I'm not talking of Instagram or Facebook, but I'm talking about a professional presence, that is another gateway for them to know you, right? I mean, that's it's today's day and age, and this is, it's not like before, a resume would work. It doesn't work that way this today,
Yeah.
right? So you have to build your presence. And how do you build your presence on social media, right? On LinkedIn in particular, how do you do it? And this is something, and how do you make yourself, you know, attractive in a way that your recruiter will be like, you know what, this guy looks like a good candidate. I want to work with him, or I want to hire him to work in our company. So how do you build a personal brand from that sense? That's something I like to really love help people with, because so it's not about, how do you become the best influencer. That's not something I focus on, but I focus on how do you become the best at, and how do you make your knowledge shine, so that a recruiter, or even some manager, or from, or a CEO from a different industry will find you, and they will say, you know what, this looks like a worthy candidate. Even before you apply for a job, they want to work with you. So build your, branding in that way. So this is something I love to talk to people about behind the scenes. And I usually have a lot of, and those are very productive conversations, because I feel like I'm making a difference to the way that they're suddenly seeing, and kind of give them hope about, finding their jobs. Because it's not about you looking for jobs. It's sometimes you have to make it in a way that the jobs will be looking for you, and make it that way. So build your voice like that on social media. So that's another thing I love helping people with, to make that difference. And the last, most importantly, apart from personal branding and communication, yeah, I love to share the knowledge about the data space and the storytelling aspect, because, again, this is something, a I have the skills and knowledge, and I feel like I need to take it out of me. I'll be very honest, that's one reason I started. I felt like I need to kind of, if I have it from so many years, because I've been in this industry, I've worked in the field of, the data space and all for almost like more than 17 to 18 years already. And I feel like it needs to be told somewhere, I mean, I can't just let it live with it in me. So that's the reason, actually, first of all, I started off, and talking about the data space, and then a lot of the, the communication in terms of data, the storytelling and all. But then I also started to realize, along with, the feeling of, feeling rewarding when you're sharing, apart from that, it kind of builds, this whole experience of shared learning with others on the platform. It kind of develops a sense of community, it you start learning from others as well along the way. You share your knowledge, and others share their knowledge as well. So that community that builds up, it's really nice. It's just your own community of, like-minded people, like-minded professionals. So that is really good. That's really, just good to know that you have more people like you out there, who understand the way you're saying, or saying what you're saying. So yeah, these are, just, a few of the things, which, drives my passion, or, for sharing knowledge, and, helping others, just being able to kind of make a difference to other people's, understanding and their lives, in a way, in a very short, small way. But yeah.
Yeah, so nice answer, Salma. It's great to know that your passion on helping people and sharing knowledge, like what you mentioned in shared learning. And the question that I have next is relevant to what you just answered. In terms of introverts, right? I'm an introvert. I can resonate with what you said, because we find it challenging in terms of opening up in networking events, for example. Uh, those are the huge nightmare for introverts. So, we would like to know from someone like you, what would be the strategies or techniques that you would recommend introverts to effectively network and create meaningful communications in order to build credibility.
I actually would love to answer this, because like I said, I did work with an introvert, team member myself. So, and just to, and I've actually worked with him for almost as in together, I've worked with him for almost like 7 or 8 years. So yeah, just to see the difference and after 7 to 8 years, and I feel like I've been able to make the difference. So yeah, I'd love to kind of share a few points on this, and uh, how other, anyone introvert out there, how can they improve? So because introverts are very, they are not very, extremely expressive, right? So if you're going to be attending some kind of an event, and by event I mean, a small meeting or a workshop or anything, or if you're going to be a part of, any kind of an event, kind of set a personal goal for yourself. Like today let's say I'm going to a workshop. Today I want to make sure that I get to know at least 3 people. You know, build a kind of, a personal goal for yourself. Or today I'm going to a meeting, right? And because, so when we, in a professional setting, when we go to a meeting, it's not like we already know what meeting we are going to, right? We know the topic. In a real scenario, your managers will tell you that this is what the meeting is about and this is what we're going to discuss, right? So have 1 or 2 pre-set questions in your mind, that today I'm going to ask this question, right? So prepare it in your mind ahead of time, so you don't kind of feel, oh, what do I ask? Or I'm feeling so uncomfortable, at least one question. Start it, you don't have to, build a whole conversation. Ask at least one question, right? Or think about what you want to achieve. How many like in a workshop I said, how many number of people do you want to meet? Or what is a specific topic that you want to raise, or what is a specific, or is there a specific answer that that you want to answer? So if that you feel that topic is coming up, raise your hand and answer it. So set a goal for yourself. This will kind of give you a sense of direction. It'll give you a sense of purpose. When you're walking into a meeting, that today my goal is to meet 3 people, or today, or when you're already in a meeting today, or when you're in a workshop today, I want to know, I want to have a conversation with that guy when he's having lunch. Why not? Set a goal for yourself and stick to it. Start with that. That's basically, that's at least, it's kind of an appetizer, to getting, to starting to become a bit open, right? Set a goal for yourself, right? And if it is possible, start by attending smaller meetings, or smaller gatherings. If you're not very comfortable in, huge, spaces, with lots of, and by space I mean with lots of people, and you're not comfortable, start by, attending more smaller events, more intimate events where you have few people, or, where you have, a meeting, with, maybe you only have 2 people in a meeting. Try to volunteer and see if you can attend that meeting as well, if so you can add feedback or something, because introverts, you will feel, if they feel comfortable with maybe conversing with maybe the 2 people that they really know well, so if you see those 2 managers getting into a meeting, see if you can volunteer and say, hey, you know what, I'd love to be a part of this, because maybe because you're already comfortable speaking to them, right? So yeah, try to start with smaller, smaller events, so that you can start feeling comfortable, and then, build yourself out from there. But having said all of that, I also want to stress, I don't like to push people to, kind of say, hey, you know what, you have to speak, or you have to be in that meeting. Don't do that. Introverts themselves, it's about expressing, but that doesn't mean you're any less, knowledgeable, right? You are equally knowledgeable, and introverts have their own strength. Like my coworker, he was really strong in analytics, and I'll be very honest, he was way more stronger in terms of coding than I was, but who would have known that, right? I was the only one who knew that, right? Because he never expressed how good he was, but I knew how it was. So, but to leverage that strength. If you have a strength, and if you feel like you're an introvert and people are never going to know you, then use the strength that you have and let people know you through that, right? So introverts, I've noticed, because they don't express, they're very good listeners because they're so focused, because they're not speaking, right? So they're all their focus is on listening. Because in my so for me, for example, if I'm in a meeting, I'm very expressive. I will think about what I need to say, so I'm maybe listening, but I'm also at the back of my mind working about how I need to answer that question, right? But introverts are 100% focused on listening, right? They're 100% focused on observing. So you have to use this strength, leverage the strength, and maybe kind of uh, you know I don't know, in a way, show it in a project or something, where sometimes you are able to and understand the point of view better than anyone else. Leverage it. Go one on one and say, hey, you know what, this is what you were saying, and I understood what you're trying to say. This is how I think it's better. In a way, listen and use that strength. And so you might not be expressive in a bigger environment. Go one on one and talk about what you just understood. Ask open-ended questions to that one person who you understood, and show that you're interested in working with that person, in terms of, I would like to kind of collaborate on this project with you because I understood everything that you're saying, right? They have these very critical thinking skills because they're not distracted as much as, most of us are, and that's the thing, introverts have that kind of a power in them, the 100% focus. And I've noticed not only him, my coworker, but I have worked with a few more as well. And that's one strength I noticed is they can read through the lines of what they're saying faster than I could because they were so heavily focused on what the listener was saying, you know. So, yeah, use that to go one on one and ask questions and see if you can get yourself, and show a genuine interest in, the person that you're speaking with, and show that you're interested in, in any of their project. Because introverts, they really drive one on one conversations way better than, larger groups, right? Yeah, start with that, and eventually, you will start seeing, over a period of time, as you're, kind of building relationships along the way, or, and as you're, becoming more and more efficient in talking to, maybe, so you thrive in one-on-one conversation with one person, then with another person, bring them in a group and start talking. You will notice that the three people you're comfortable speaking to one-on-one, you will eventually feel comfortable speaking to them, all three of them in a group. That's how you start, developing, your openness towards, talking. If you're not comfortable, take a break. Don't push yourself to try to speak. Know your limits and take a break when you're feeling way too overwhelmed. And that's absolutely fine. It when you're in a big setting, it can be kind of mentally draining for you as an introvert, to talk to suddenly, like you can suddenly get overwhelmed when you have too many people talking around you, so take a step away, and just take a break, recharge your mind and come back, and take time to reflect on how to get back into the group and start a new conversation, kind of recharge yourself and come back. It's okay, do what you need to do to kind of, you don't have to push yourself. That's what I'm saying. If you're an introvert, don't push yourself too hard. Go step by step by step. Start with a single person, go into bigger meetings, build the relationships that you already have, and yeah, practice conversation starters as well. This really helps a lot. You have a good friend with you, practice with them, some icebreakers, or, to kind of help you into conversations when you're having it others the next time, practice a few, or, if you know a bit about your industry as well, see if you can find someone who shares a mutual interest and, kind of talk to them, This is another thing that helps, find people with mutual interest, you will feel comfortable talking to them, So yeah, build relationships, but don't push it too hard. You have your strength. If you're an introvert, if you have your strength, show your strength, you know. Don't hide that away as well, you know. And yeah, I would just say, you know, if don't like feel very overwhelmed by the people around you just because everyone is expressive, you know. Understand in your mind, end of the day, you might be an introvert, you might not be expressive, but you have the power of something where nobody else has, is you have 100% focus and others don't. Because believe it or not, everyone is in a meeting or in a real setting, they're already thinking of something else to say, you know, to continue the conversation, um, even before, you know, the other person is finishing speaking. So we are not always at 100% capacity in our mind. But introverts, you have the power to do that. Use it in a way, you know. And that's what I did to my coworker as well. I told him, dude, you have a power to listen, because he could focus so much. Put it in a, you know, you listened so well, put it in an email and say, you know what, I was there in, you know, based on the meeting, here are some of my proposals and I feel this would work really well. And I was able to help him kind of build up through emails. So, you know, go digital if you have to. And believe me, this is something I'll tell everyone. If you're an introvert, if you're not comfortable expressing verbally, go and start typing. You know,
Yeah.
nobody stops you from expressing yourself in a written document, you know.
Correct.
So you have to communicate something. Don't say it if you're not comfortable. That's fine. If it's too overwhelming, that's fine. Use the strength. But you know something and you have so much of focus and you have so many ideas. Go ahead and put it on an email and send it, you know, to the manager that, hey, you know, these are my proposals or these are my opinions. This is what I think and this is what should be done, you know. And this is how I remember I helped my coworker, you know, my team member kind of build his, you know, strength from there. And before, like, he's still working as we speak, you know, in the same company before I quit. But before I left, because he was the only um, person who, in a way, in terms of the work responsibility, he was my only backup who could take over when I was quitting my job, you know. He was the only person who I could trust could take over my role extremely well, because, you know, we kind of were always together in the same meeting. We, you know, we anything that we coded, we used to be a paired, you know, like it's paired programming, and we used to do the coding together, or we used to analyze things together, to brainstorm together. It was always both of us together, you know, because sometimes he would understand things I couldn't pick up, or I could pick up more things than he couldn't. So it was always both of us walking with a notebook. So, and I feel he was the only one who could take, and I was so confident and happy by the end, you know, by the time I was quitting, because he had become so much more better at talking to people and communicating by the end. I felt like, you know what, I think you're good enough to take over my entire role when I leave. And then I did that and I was really happy. So I think, yeah, take it step by step, you know, don't push too hard. And if you have a strength, you know, as an introvert, focus on that strength, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a few of my opinions, if that helps.
Yeah, that is definitely helpful, Salma, because I have a meeting next week that's coming up. It's an network event, and I'm sure I'm going to take those points and start implementing and see how it goes. In your experience, what are some challenges or common challenges that individuals face when trying to improve their presentation skills or communication skills?
First things I definitely noticed when, you know, people are trying to present or trying to communicate something is, many people, they struggle with confidence when it comes to, you know, business
Mm,
communication, right? They feel nervous, or, you know, they feel nervous trying to kind of express their point. They feel nervous in trying to express their ideas, or even engage in a meaningful conversation with, you know, a senior person, you know.
mm,
So you know, um, another issue I've definitely noticed is they kind of get flustered sometimes, and you might be very prepared, you know.
mm,
You might be very prepared mentally, but when you're actually about to really present, you start getting flustered. You start having difficulty in organizing your thoughts, you know, and in a very like coherent manner. You know, you're not able to organize it, you know, very clearly. You're finding it difficult to convey ideas with the, you know, in a very smooth flow, you know. So a couple of these issues show up when you're actually trying to present, or, you know, or when you're trying to do, you know, kind of communicate, or so what are the ways to basically um, improve all of these? Well, if I want to say is to start overcoming, first of all, for building confidence, as I would say, like as I mentioned, if you're struggling and you really want to build confidence, as I mentioned, I think even for the case of introverts as well, similarly for anyone, start with practicing first. Practice by yourself or practice in front of people say practice in front of a mirror. I don't know. I don't recommend that. It's really awkward. You need to practice in front of someone who can give you feedback, because you practice in front of a mirror, you could be practicing everything wrong, you know. So I normally recommend practice in front of someone who can kind of give you their feedback, or if you don't want to practice in front of someone, practice in a way you can record yourself and see yourself. It's easier to know where you went wrong, when you're seeing yourself. So you record yourself, practice practice an introduction, or practice a conclusion or paragraph, whatever. Practice and see, so start with practicing, then start with smaller situations and build your, start in trying to be expressive in smaller gatherings if you can, in low pressure situations, and where it's a meeting not with the managers, but it's a meeting among the team members itself. When you're having a meeting within your own team members, or within your own, within the same hierarchy, it's a bit of a low pressure situation as much as it is when you have 3 or 4, people from the management present, right? So try to start building, be expressive in those smaller situation meetings or low situation meetings. So, and start practicing. So this will kind of start building a confidence, and gradually work your way up, right? And if you're finding it difficult to kind of organize your thoughts suddenly when you put together, put an outline for yourself, which is which we normally say, structure your structure and outline. So even if you like suddenly feel like you're getting confused, because people blank out, and this is so normal. You will be fully practiced and fully well versed, but when you go in front of an actual audience, you might blank out. So how, and that could be embarrassing, right? It's not really good. So in that way, start practicing, outlining, or structure your thoughts, put it on paper in bullet points, and create an outline before you start speaking. This way it will kind of keep your ideas in place, and ensure that there is a very clear, logical progression of the communication that you're doing, because you don't want to get mixed up in your mind and, give the ending first and give, or give, kind of, you don't want to mix up the points in a logical flow. If you have something that's going in a flowchart form, or, this, and then after this, and after this, put that in your outline, so you know what points to hit first and what after that and what after that. So it appears, it is okay to show that you're looking at, you're taking points from your written outline, rather than actually show that you're not confident and you're mixing up the whole conversation. It's okay, right? So outline your ideas if possible, write it down somewhere. And so what I was telling you is about presenting, right? And about going in meeting situations. The other is when you are basically even talking to a manager or anyone, when you are talking to someone, you have to make sure your communication in that, within that conversation is very strong as well. So, and like I mentioned before, you have to be an active listener for that, So it's for any communication to be really effective, it's a two-way process, right? Not only is the person, you let the other person speak, but you have to be equally, actively listening as well, right? So don't think about, which is what I tend to do normally also, right? I'm kind of trying to think, what do I ask the next question when someone is talking, right? You can do that, but don't go to the point of, don't interrupt and say, and just say, hey, what, this is what I'm thinking, or, and fully listen to their question, understand their message, paraphrase if you need to, and, and then answer their question, and, you know. So you don't have to, so don't interrupt when you're trying to
Mm,
speak with someone, right?
mm,
Practice active listening skills, and there is a way to practice that as well, you know. So yeah, practice, speak to your friends, let them, or speak to your peers, get into a conversation and kind of try to practice active listening skills from there, be a more active listener when they're trying to tell a long story, so yeah, focus on the speaker,
mm,
maintain eye contact with them, right? This is so important in a conversation to make the conversation feel effective. Maintain eye contact, ask questions if you need to, clarify questions, paraphrase, and talk in a way, or ensure you paraphrase or talk in a way that is aligning with the speaker's intentions, you know,
mm,
so which shows that you are actually paying attention and that you are a good listener, and this kind of indirectly is kind of building the a stronger connection between you and the speaker as well. So yeah, that. And another thing I would 100% I would just like to focus on, open-minded and be adaptable to cultural differences, right? To
mm,
other people's cultural perspectives.
mm,
People are from diverse backgrounds, so there is so you need to be able to speak with them accordingly, so understand about their communication styles and their sensitivity, and what you need to be aware of. Educate yourself about them, and kind of be more adaptable to how they are. And yeah, and just try to avoid jargons overall, that if you really want to have any kind of communication in place. And I'll tell you one thing, I know we normally, in theory, you can say that, it's okay to say, you can use a lot of jargons when you're speaking with your technical audiences, but, sometimes just try to see if it works, if you just can avoid jargons altogether. It really helps, even, within, even if I'm talking to you right now, I could be using a lot of technical terms when I'm speaking, but I'm not, right? Even though you are from the data space as much as I am, but,
mm,
um, but keep it very casual. Try to avoid jargons and try to avoid technical language. Even if you're from the same profession, sometimes it kind of just being able to explain simple concepts in a simple way to the other person, it really kind of makes this whole it makes it really effective. The whole communication, it becomes way much more effective, because
yeah,
there's not a single doubt that the other person may or may not understand, even if it's technical, So if you're simple, everybody understands. So
yeah,
yeah, those are just
yeah.
a few of the things for
Yeah.
communication.
That definitely helps, Salma, in terms of the jargons that you said. When you said, right, you are not using jargon, that's when I really realized that you are not really speaking of any jargons at all. So the next question is really important one, Salma, because people have asked me directly. This is something about we do have take-home projects, right? In a data science interview or a data analytics
You would like
interview,
to
would you like to
how
give an advice to interviewees on how to impress their hiring manager or employers in situations like that during a case study presentation?
One of the things that you should focus on when you're actually talking about, um, you know, your projects,
Mm,
is first of all, before you start by giving kind of an overview of the project, right? So
mm,
start with, a very brief summary about what the project is, what is the objective of the project, what was the scope of the project, um, and what are some of the assumptions that you have kept in mind when you're making the project, when you're working on the project, you know um, start with all of that, so
mm,
to kind of build or set some kind of a context, or
mm,
to it kind of start it builds a platform or foundation for to start understanding what you're about to tell them, so
mm,
start with adding a context and give them an idea. This is the project I was working on, these are the scopes and everything, right? And um, as you go, and then as you start, talk about, so don't just go into presenting what you just did,
mm,
talk about highlight the important parts first. So talk about, so from the project, these were my key findings and these are my key insights from the analysis. you know Try to focus on the key takeaways. This is what I found, and these are some of the takeaways which I feel are from the project, right? And address what solves the problem of that project, right? So this was the problem that was identified, and I feel these are the key takeaways, and these are the problems that can be solved, and kind of show them in a logical manner, right? Like number one, I feel this could be resolved. Number two, I think this could be done. Number three, so kind of give them a logical progression of points, right? And along with supporting information, right?
Right.
So mention that, so these are my takeaways, and I will be showing you this in this chart, or I have I this is the percentage increase I noticed in the or overall in my project, and I will be talking about this as well. So give them kind of a highlight, to get them ready to kind of to see what they're getting into, right? So you're kind of building some, you're starting to build an interest in them. That this was my project, this is the scope, these are my assumptions, these are the highlights, these are the lowlights, these are my, important points. And then you start moving into, show them, talk about, show them your visuals, your graphs, your diagrams, whatever, to enhance, to add clarity to what you are saying. So these are going to be your supporting points, right? So use proper visuals, and use proper annotations and text and labels to highlight the point. So this will kind of reinforce what you said. So say, something like, this is a chart when this is showing the increase as which I mentioned about, my introduction, that this is the trend and this is the comparison. So start like, so, and make sure your visuals are very easy to understand so that they immediately support the key points that you mentioned in the beginning. So you can easily link it to that, right? And definitely don't forget to kind of explain what are the implications of your findings, right? What did you find and how can it affect, right? Don't forget to describe what is the approach that you used, right? This is, that for this work, this is the approach, or this, I took for this analysis, or I have removed these outliers for the analysis, and this is the reason I removed it, right? Discuss any limitations or assumptions that you have taken behind your analysis. This kind of helps the interviewer, or, to understand or validate that, yes, this person goes not only, that you're trying to understand the data, that, it shows that the interviewee is understanding the data itself more than just preparing the graphs. It's not about taking a data set and preparing graphs and keeping it. No, you're understanding what's going on. You're trying to build a story. And that is why maybe you remove the outliers, because it was, it was kind of, bringing a limitation to your story. So, talk about what you did and what you didn't and what are the methods, and again, avoid technical jargons when you're doing it. Don't give don't give away too much excessive information, because your interviewer, so think of your interviewer as maybe an audience who is looking at your project, and you're trying to explain. Think of them as a regular audience, who's maybe a senior, right? How would you explain to them? You wouldn't go rambling about the details, and too much excessive. Keep it high level. Give them what you understood, the highlights, and all the other things. So don't overwhelm them, right? Stick to the most relevant, and the most relevant information, and don't go off like tangent. Don't go into a different tangent, right? And most importantly, because you are in an interviewing situation, be prepared for questions. So practice a few potential questions that could come up from the analysis that you do, right? As a matter of fact, this really helps if you're having a project that you need to present, to your interviewer, any kind of take-home project. Try to see if you can present it to someone else, maybe anyone of your friend or something, because let them get to ask you questions, and those are maybe some of the potential questions, the interviewer could be asking. And not only that, it's going to kind of build a confidence on how to give you kind of a it's going to yeah, it will give you some kind of a practice, on how to answer questions in the event you do get asked questions from the interviewer, right? So consider possible, interpretations or limitations of your findings and have an answer for that in your mind, and see if you can have some extra evidences ready. It's like keep an appendix in your mind ready, just in case there are questions. Go to that appendix bit in your mind and answer the question, right? And last of all, I would say practice time management. Don't forget that, because you're in an interviewing situation. Practice time management. Think about how you can make the whole point in the shortest way, in the most effective way, and within a specific time. Because this is something even interviewers, they track. They don't tell you, but they definitely keep a track of how long you are going to take to make your point, because this kind of shows in a real life situation whether you are able to give your key takeaways right away in a real life meeting, because if it's an executive situation, executives don't have 20 minutes on hand to listen to it. They maybe have like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, because they have a lot of things running in their mind, 10 minutes max, because they have to rush to another meeting. You have to keep that in mind. So think of it that way and kind of present it that, keep that in mind when you're presenting, so that, yeah, it appears that you are very well managed in terms of time. Yeah, I think those are some of the tips I think I could give if you have a take home project.
So this is really helpful for all of us in terms of how to prepare and how to like impress your interviewer and hiring
Yes,
manager. It's a
yes.
fun question. Like now we have you, right? Like sharing your knowledge across data perspective and then communication skills. So who was that person for you, Salma? Like we would like to know who was some. Did you have anybody helping you out, or is it something that you learned by yourself? We would like to know that.
There are two parts to this question. So first, I would like to say that moving into the data space, because in the early 2000s, or was not the same as it is today.
Mhm.
Just the mindset of a girl moving into the data space itself was very, you know it was very difficult, in the sense, like, I was the only girl who had moved into a team of, because and I'm talking of, like, I think I can't around 17 years ago or something. I was the only girl in a five, my team was of five boys, you know.
Oh,
I was the only girl in there who got, and even when I applied for the role of data analytics, because I actually, um, it was an internal movement for me, and I was already in a different role, So it wasn't like I applied for the job of, in the data space. It was an internal movement within the company, right?
oh,
So there was an opening for, a data analyst, or, um, and I actually had applied for it only because in my mind at that time, which is actually for that time, it is relevant, as I was really good at math, and I felt like, um, for me, data analytics is about numbers, and I really want to work with numbers, and so I applied for the role, and I remember I was the only girl who applied, and there were like 17 other boys who applied, and I received a fair bit of discouragement from them, saying that, hey, you shouldn't be applying because you're a girl, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. And I passed 3 or 4 rounds of the test better than anyone, and and that's how I came into the team. But I also realized when I came into the team is I wasn't getting much of an importance I should, because I was a girl.
oh,
You know, the boys were having their own thing, they were talking, they were discussing, and I was left out. And I felt it so much. I feel like these girls are not accepted in this space, and so I had to kind of learn my own way up, in a way. Like, I was like, you know what, if I have to make myself seen, like, I was kind of invisible in the team for almost a year, and it started to get to me, and I started to realize I have to find a different way to do this, and I kind of realized, in a very weird way, it helped out, because I noticed these guys, they were so technical, like, in the sense they were so busy on the data, that they missed out on something which I feel like I was good at, because um, I am by nature a person who loves to talk to people, so I got off the seat and I started talking, um, to the managers. I started going and sitting with the team leaders, and and seeing what they're, or the teams, and seeing what they do and what they don't, and understanding not the process, but in terms of their objectives, what are their KPIs and what's important, what's not. Eventually what happened is I started gaining a kind of advantage over the rest of the team, because the boys were so busy on how to do forecast, how to do the numbers, and then they were so busy with the numbers that they kind of forgot the nuance of the whole company itself, as in understanding how to get your point across to the other person, understanding who your audiences are, who the managers are, what their processes are. And I feel like I started getting that advantage only because I need to find a way to stick out. And what happened eventually is, because I started understanding all the departments better, and KPIs better than others in my own team, I started getting called into meetings because I was able to give a feedback and not the other guys. And that kind of started indirectly, making me realize this is really important if you need to survive, because what happened is, within the team, I started, even though, I went from nowhere to a somebody, and everybody in my team went to a nobody, because I was the one getting called into meetings because I was able to give a feedback, and I was there who was sitting and talking. And fast forward many, many, many years, maybe another like 7 or 8 years. I kid you not, everybody in my team, one by one, quit because I was the only one left. And for a while, I was the one person team for at least 2 years, because they were not able to find someone to come, and it was really weird. I don't know. It's like they were not able to hire someone who could work directly with me at that level already. They needed someone internally to move, who was already well versed with the business, so yeah, those things happened. And then I remember, so that's one, is I think what inspired me is my team not paying attention to me because I was a girl. Those guys inspired me to become good at what I was, and the second, in 20 and specifically 2014, I would say, I there was a whole change of management we had, and my manager, and it was very good. My direct manager himself was from an analytics background, and because he was from an analytics background, he kind of indirectly pushed me into these really high level executive meetings, because he was a manager and he understood that, because, a regular manager, who's, like my prior managers, they kind of knew the data space in general, but they were not hardcore analytics, but this manager knew what I already, in terms of the technical skills that I had. So he would give me really, really, really complicated, projects, and or complicated presentations, which I had to like work on for 3-4 weeks and come up with a proposal or something like that. And that kind of pushed me into the a much bigger space. I was suddenly talking to executives directly. I was directly talking to the I had to go through some mergers and acquisitions. I had to speak with the other people from the other the companies, or who were merging, because I was in a bank, so speak to the other banks, and speak to their other stakeholders. So I was suddenly moved into this much bigger space, and I had to kind of push myself to keep up with them. I had to again do a lot of self study. So yeah, there are two ways to my growth in my career. One is the boys who did nothing but did something out of that, and my manager, who kind of he really just threw me into this weird ocean where I didn't know how to do anything. He's like, figure it out, you will know it. And I think because he trusted me so much, I wanted to keep up to that trust. I did a lot of self study before I would present something, or because when you're talking to a stakeholder, so the things that I talk about today, about understanding who your audiences are, or understand your audience, this is something I had to learn so much, because I had to the audiences could be someone who is extremely outside our company, because it could be someone I'll be more, we'll be merging with potential, a different guy from a different bank. So we had to talk about that. So you have to keep in mind his understanding of our company, right? You have to talk about CEOs of our company. You have to keep in mind that our own managers are also going to be there. So you have and then you have European management as well.
Yeah.
They're very progressive minded, and I was, because I was working in Dubai. In much of the later stage, I was working with a very conservative management in terms of the CEOs. They're very conservative minded, not progressive. So how do you kind of cater to all different audiences at the same time? I had to do a lot of self study and a lot of understanding around that. So, and I think there's so much knowledge that built up over the time. I feel like, you know, yeah, it's about time I need to kind of, give it out. But yeah, those are the two main things that helped me be where I am today.
That was definitely an incredible experience, Salman. And thank you for sharing the personal information and your experience. Finally, I would like to know, could you tell us more about your company, Hummingbirds, and the specific services that you offer?
Sure. So it's hummingbirds, not
Mhm.
hummingbirds. It was supposed to be hummingbirds, I'll tell you, and then the domain actually was taken. So,
Oh,
and I went with hummingbirds, and I actually think I like it better because the hues are colors, and so I kind of wanted to add that to the company name itself. But yeah, what other services do I offer? Just to anyone who's going to be watching this, first of all, I initially started my company
mhm.
um, with presentation services a lot, because I have a lot of presentation developing experience as well, because this was a lot needed in my role in as well, so I used to offer presentation design services. This is something I don't voluntarily offer right now. So if anyone's right now, I am a lot into consulting, a lot into the training space, so I have corporates who are coming and signing up with me for doing workshops with their teams, or training their whole teams. So yeah, I do a lot of that. I do a lot of consulting services in terms of people actually um, you know um, come up with their already developed presentations or dashboards, and kind of take opinion on how they can fix it, or what are the better ways to arrange this, based on the objectives. So I help them align their presentations or their dashboards, based on the key takeaways, based on the objectives. So so I do a lot of that consulting. And I do something which I don't so this is like, I particularly don't offer on my website. So personal branding, again, is something I don't voluntarily offer it, but people kind of know it through word of mouth, because one person to another person. So I do a lot of that in the background. Another thing I do in the background, which I'm currently working with a big company in the US, is I also do a lot of content writing for other companies as well. That's something, again, I don't particularly um, advertise. It's only because I'm already busy with so much trainings and all, so I don't think I want to get more load of work, because so yeah. But I definitely do a lot of technical, not technical, but yeah, data communication, visual communication related content writing for other big companies. So yeah, so these are the few things that I do in my company, but predominantly training and consulting at the forefront.
Great, great. That's nice to know, Fatma. You shared incredible insights and knowledge that is like I I do build dashboards as part of my job, and some of the tips that you provide, right? It's like literally helpful for me to like implement in my job space. So I thought, like, why not have you here and like educate myself and my audience and your audience as well, like to understand and perfect themselves on the skills that they want to improve. So thanks a lot, Salma. This is all that I have for this podcast and episode, and I hope it was enjoyable for you as well. And
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I was
yeah.
happy to share my stories and my point of views. It's wonderful speaking to you, Nima.